What is carbon dioxide?
I went to high school, but that's carbon dioxide is a gas.
Okay.
I'm not a professional to talk about carbon dioxide so much, but
Well, you want us to abolish it, right?
well, okay. But yeah, I don't know. What are you asking specifically?
You tweeted the war on drugs, you said, was intentionally created to incarcerate black people en masse. Who intentionally created the war on drugs to put black people in jail? Who were you talking about?
I don't remember typing that.
You don't?
No.
It's on your Twitter feed. You think we ought to abolish the police, do you?
Again, not the topic I'm here to talk about today.
I know, but you tweeted it. Do you think we ought to abolish the police?
That's not what I'm here to talk about.
Should we do that before or after we get rid of fossil fuels?
I'm not going to address that. That's...
You don't want to address it? Okay.
Welcome back, Patriots, to America First, the channel where we bring you the truth that the mainstream media won't. If you love this country, stand for freedom, and believe in putting America first, you've come to the right place. Before we dive into today's video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you never miss the truth. Let's remind Big Tech that they can't silence patriotic voices. All right, folks, today we're diving into a heated exchange from a Senate hearing that has the left squirming. Senator John Kennedy absolutely dismantled the so-called expert testimony of Noah Schumacher, a cross-country skier who apparently thinks he's qualified to lecture Congress about climate policy. Yes, you heard that right, a skier. Not a scientist, not an economist, just a skier. And the Democrats thought this was a good idea. Let's break it down.
Mr. Schumacher, welcome. You were, who invited you here today?
I came with Protect Our Winters.
Right. But you're here on behalf of the Democrats or the Republicans?
I'm here on behalf of the outdoor enthusiasts around America.
Okay. You were contacted by Senator Whitehouse's staff?
I personally came with Protect Our Winters, so I don't know how that went exactly.
What is carbon dioxide?
I went to high school, but that's carbon dioxide is a gas.
Okay.
I'm not a professional to talk about carbon dioxide so much, but
Well, you want us to abolish it, right?
no, there's always going to be carbon dioxide.
Right. So what is it you want us to do? Let me back up, because I mean, you're here as an expert. Tell me more about what carbon dioxide is.
I'm here as an expert cross-country skier who sees the changes in my winters and the landscape that I live in Alaska. And so carbon dioxide is what I see it as is, it's a gas that exists in our atmosphere. And
Is it the major part of our atmosphere? Or?
It's a huge part of our atmosphere, yes.
It's actually a very small part of our atmosphere.
Well, okay. But, yeah, I don't know. What are you asking specifically?
Well, you say we need to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. I'd like to know first if you know what it is. You want us to abolish fossil fuels?
I never said that.
You never have said that?
No.
Okay. What do you think we ought to do with fossil fuels?
What will we do with fossil fuels?
Yeah. Should we make any changes?
I would like to see a decrease in the use of fossil fuels. I think there's a possibility to use more electric generation.
Okay. Over what period of time? 10 years, 50 years, 100 years?
That's not, I would like to see it come as fast as possible while continuing.
How fast?
Sorry?
How fast?
I don't have a
You
great
don't
answer
know?
for that, no.
Okay. You just think, well, how much will it cost for us to become carbon neutral in the United States by 2050?
I'm not a professional on that. I don't have an answer.
You don't have any idea?
No.
You just think we ought to spend the money?
I'm not an economist.
Yeah, but it's going to cost money. You realize that?
Yeah, but we've also talked about the trade-off of what the cost of climate change as emergencies will cost in the future also. So
Right, but it's going to cost trillions of dollars to become carbon neutral by 2050, right?
I do not know.
You don't know. You just think we ought to do it.
I don't have a great answer for you, but I think
Okay.
I would like
If
to
we
see fewer
spent if we spent those trillions of dollars and became carbon neutral by 2050 in the United States, which you advocate, how much will it reduce world temperatures?
I don't have an answer for that.
You don't know?
No.
You just think we ought to spend the money and then see what happens?
I think as an athlete, I think if we spend that money and invest in our future, hopefully those temperatures stop rising and maybe the snow at least stabilizes where it is for me. But yeah, I don't think anyone knows for sure. I don't know anyway.
Well, when my colleagues invite witnesses to come to us to tell us, advise us on passing legislation, I always check out the background of our witnesses because I like to know who I'm talking to. I checked yours out, Mr. Schumacher, and I want to be sure I understand it as I evaluate your testimony. On June 8th, 2020, you tweeted, I'm going to quote, "The war on drugs was intentionally created to incarcerate black people en masse," end quote. The war on drugs, you said, was intentionally created to incarcerate black people en masse. Who intentionally created the war on drugs to put black people in jail? Who were you talking about?
I don't remember typing that.
You don't?
No.
It's on your Twitter feed.
Maybe a retweet. I don't know. I haven't used that in a while.
Well,
Also,
even
it
if
doesn't
it's a
seem like
retweet, it shows your support, right?
Maybe, yeah. But it's not the topic of this conversation. I think.
Right. But it has to do with, you're here giving us advice, and I just kind of like to know a little bit more about your
Yeah,
point of view.
I'm here as an athlete giving you my story and what I've seen in my field.
On August 27th of 2020, you tweeted this, quote, I'm going to quote, "Police are paid with taxpayer dollars. If they are not answerable to us, we can demand new service, and that's what this is. Abolish the police in favor of that new service," end quote. You think we ought to abolish the police, do you?
Again, not the topic I'm here to talk about today.
I know, but you tweeted it. Do you think we ought to abolish the police?
That's not what I'm here to talk about.
Should we do that before or after we get rid of fossil fuels?
I'm not going to address that. That's,
You don't want to address it? Okay. Let me ask you about one more of your tweets. On August 26, 2020, you tweeted, there's a picture, I'm not going to describe the picture, but you said, quote, your words, not mine, it's on your Twitter feed, quote, "This is what systemic racism looks like. The Los Angeles Police Department is literally policing only the Black Lives Matter side," end quote. What'd you mean by that?
This is still off topic.
No, it's not. You're here as an expert telling us, advising us, and I'm asking you about your background.
I'm here as an athlete to talk about the effects of climate change on my sport.
Okay, let's go back. Well, I'm almost out of
Senator,
time.
you're well out of time, and we have other senators waiting, so please
Okay.
wrap up when you have a moment.
All right. Thank you all for your testimony.
First, Senator Kennedy asks Schumacher a basic question. What is carbon dioxide? And what does Schumacher do? He stumbles. He admits he doesn't really know. I mean, if you're going to come to Congress and demand trillions of dollars for your climate agenda, shouldn't you at least know the basics? Carbon dioxide is one of the most important gases in our atmosphere. It's literally what plants need to survive. But Schumacher couldn't even explain that. He's not a scientist, folks. He's just parroting the talking points of the radical left. Then Kennedy asks him about fossil fuels. Does Schumacher want to abolish them? He says no, but then he immediately talks about reducing their use and transitioning to electric energy. Look, patriots, we all know what that means. The left doesn't have the guts to say it outright, but their goal is clear. They want to destroy America's energy independence. They want to cripple industries, kill jobs, and force us to rely on expensive and unreliable green energy, while countries like China keep burning coal like there's no tomorrow. And Schumacher? He doesn't even have a timeline for this so-called transition. He just wants us to trust him. Sorry, but that's not how this works. Now, here's where it gets really absurd. Kennedy asked Schumacher how much it would cost to make the U.S. carbon neutral by 2050. And guess what? Schumacher has no idea. None. Not a clue. This is the problem with the left's climate agenda, folks. They demand trillions of your taxpayer dollars without even understanding the costs or the consequences. And when Kennedy asks how much this would lower global temperatures, Schumacher admits he doesn't know that either. So, trillions of dollars for what? A hope and a prayer that it might make a difference. That's not leadership, that's lunacy. And let's talk about qualifications. Kennedy rightly points out that when Congress invites witnesses, we expect experts, people who know what they're talking about. But here we have a skier, a guy who's only here because he claims the snow is melting where he lives. I mean, really? This is who the Democrats want advising us on trillion-dollar policies? It's embarrassing. And when Kennedy presses him on his past tweets calling for abolishing the police and accusing the war on drugs of being racist, Schumacher just dodges the questions. He says it's not the topic he came to discuss. Well, guess what, buddy? If you're going to sit in that chair and tell Congress how to spend our money, your background matters. By the end of the exchange, you can tell Schumacher is completely out of his depth. Kennedy exposes him for what he is, a puppet for the radical left. This wasn't about science, and it wasn't about solving real problems. It was about pushing an agenda that's designed to hurt hardworking Americans while giving the government more power. And the Democrats thought no one would notice. Well, Senator Kennedy noticed. And so did we. Patriots, this is why elections matter. This is why we need strong leaders like Senator Kennedy who will stand up to the nonsense and fight for common sense. The climate agenda being pushed by the left isn't about saving the planet, it's about control. They want to control what you drive, what you eat, how you heat your home, and even what you think. But here at America First, we're not going to let them get away with it. Before we wrap up, let me remind you, this fight isn't over. We need to keep exposing the lies and holding these so-called experts accountable. If you agree, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Together, we can keep the truth alive and stand up for the values that made this country great. This is America First. Thanks for watching, and God bless the USA.